home or visit homeparamount.com.
Tonight from Jerusalem, Trump in Israel, the first sitting president to visit the hallowed Western Wall, pushing peace and taking a hard line on Iran. Taking the fifth, fired National Security Advisor Michael Flynn refusing to cooperate with a subpoena. And late word, a powerful Democrat says Flynn lied to investigators about money from Russia. Was it a hate crime? A campus in shock as a soon-to-be graduate is stabbed to death, why the FBI is now investigating his accused killer. Hearing loss help for millions of all ages. Tonight, a new push for an over-the-counter option at a much lower cost. And sea lion scare, the frightening moment a little girl is yanked underwater. What the man who shot that heart-stopping video was thinking. Nightly News begins right now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, reporting tonight from Jerusalem.
Good evening from Jerusalem, a beautiful historic city in a complicated and troubled land. And tonight, President Trump is here calling for peace and getting a receptive ear as the face of a new American approach in the region. The president welcomed with full honors upon landing early today in Tel Aviv, directly from Saudi Arabia. That flight turning out to be just part of a history-making day that took the president to the heart of Old Jerusalem, and a sacred site no sitting U.S. president has visited before. But Mr. Trump also made news with some offhanded remarks that immediately reshifted focus to some of the troubles he had hoped to leave at home. Chief White House correspondent Hallie Jackson is here with us now. Hallie, good evening.
Good evening, Lester. For the second stop in a row on his overseas trip, President Trump getting a very warm welcome here in Israel, showered with praise by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a striking contrast to former President Obama's reception. And that wasn't the only difference.
A moment of silence marking history at the Western Wall. Donald Trump, the first sitting U.S. president to visit the holy site, along with his family. The symbolic step, part of a tightly choreographed visit with the president sticking to the script, mostly.
Never mention the word Israel.
Those off-the-cuff comments coming after the president was pressed about reports he shared sensitive intelligence gathered by the Israelis in this Oval Office meeting with Russian officials.
I never mentioned the word or the name Israel. Never mentioned it during that conversation. They were all saying I did. So you had another story wrong.
But the president's denying something no one accused him of. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu brushing it off.
Your intelligence cooperation is terrific.
The two leaders and longtime friends on a first-name basis.
Donald. Bibi, thank you.
Evidence everywhere of their warm relationship.
We understand each other.
To Israelis, it also helps that Donald Trump is not Barack Obama.
I want you to know how much we appreciate the change in American policy on Iran.
That tough talk against Iran, central to the president's Middle East message.
There is a growing realization among your Arab neighbors that they have common cause with you in the threat posed by Iran.
Similar language in Saudi Arabia this weekend in a speech to more than 50 Arab leaders.
For decades, Iran has fueled the fires of sectarian conflict and terror.
In Riyadh, the royal treatment for President Trump. In Tel Aviv, the red carpet rolled out. Open arms abroad for a president embattled at home, looking for a win and hoping to find one overseas. Hallie Jackson, NBC News, Jerusalem.
This is Andrea Mitchell in Jerusalem.
Welcome to our palace.
President Trump dining with the Netanyahus and tackling Middle East peace, learning on the job.
I've heard it's one of the toughest deals of all.
Realizing that a peace deal is harder than he thought only a few weeks ago.
It's something that I think is frankly maybe not as difficult as people have thought over the years.
On a trip filled with symbols, holy sites, royal welcomes, sword dances, and a glowing orb, it's still a challenge just to get Israelis and Palestinians talking to each other. Instead today, anger in Israel over a Palestinian protest. The hostility decades deep on both sides.
Today there was a strike to support Palestinians that are in jail for killing Israelis. Give me a break. You cannot seek peace when you support terror.
What they're trying to do is forge an agreement that will simply be shoved down the throats of Palestinians.
And now enter Donald Trump with a new approach, hoping stronger relations with Israel can produce small steps toward peace with the Palestinians, not the comprehensive deal envisioned by past U.S. presidents of both parties.
If he can generate a bit of hope, that's a good thing. If he raises expectations and then they're disappointed, we've seen before that can lead to a real setback and more violence.
And then, fundamental to the Trump vision, isolating Iran and opposing its newly re-elected President Rouhani, who a former Israeli spy chief says wants reform.
I think Rouhani is a symbol of a chance, an option for change in Iran.
Before leaving tomorrow, President Trump will go to Bethlehem in the West Bank and meet with the Palestinian leader. A very brief meeting, again, more symbol than substance. Lester.
Andrea Mitchell, thank you, Andrea. As the president continues his trip abroad, the Russia investigation continues to make headlines at home as former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn says he's taking the fifth and not cooperating with a subpoena. And there is word from a top Democrat in Congress saying he has documents that show Flynn lied to investigators about money from Russia. NBC's Peter Alexander has late details.
How did the meeting go? Tonight, ousted National Security Advisor Michael Flynn facing new fire. According to this letter from the top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, Flynn appears to have lied to security clearance investigators by telling them he was paid by U.S. companies when he attended this 2015 gala with Russian President Vladimir Putin. In fact, the Moscow trip was financed by Russian state media. Flynn now planning to plead the fifth, invoking his right against self-incrimination after a Senate subpoena for personal documents in its Russia investigation. A source close to Flynn telling NBC News it would be highly imprudent to comply.
I don't think there is any way that somebody who is this high up in the food chain is going to be granted immunity at this point in time.
President Trump, during the campaign, mocked those who have refused to testify.
You see, the mob takes the fifth. If you're innocent, why are you taking the Fifth Amendment?
On Capitol Hill tonight, Vice President Pence laser focused on the administration's budget plan out tomorrow. The proposal, entitled A New Foundation for American Greatness, calling for sweeping cuts to entitlement programs. Medicaid, $800 billion slashed over the next decade. $190 billion from the federal food stamp program called SNAP that fed 42 million Americans last year. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank now bracing for impact.
There's going to be a bigger hole in their budget, and they need to find a way to fill that hole in some fashion.
Also targeted Social Security disability insurance that benefits more than 10 million Americans.
When you look at their policy priorities and you look at their kind of magical numbers they're going to use for economic growth, I'm very concerned this budget will make the fiscal situation worse instead of better.
With the budget rollout looming and that Russia investigation intensifying, two of the president's top advisors, Chief of Staff Reince Priebus and Chief Strategist Steve Bannon, left the foreign trip early, returning home back here to the White House. Lester?
All right, Peter Alexander, thanks. In Maryland tonight, the FBI has been called in to assist in the investigation after a black student was stabbed to death. A white student charged with his murder, a seemingly random act of violence. Investigators are trying to determine if it was a hate crime and whether it's just the most recent, most violent episode of race-related incidents on college campuses. Here's NBC's Tom Costello.
At the University of Maryland, anguish and outrage at the stabbing death of 23-year-old Richard Collins, set to graduate tomorrow from nearby Bowie State University and commissioned just last Thursday as an Army second lieutenant. His father spoke exclusively to NBC News.
The parents' worst nightmare has just reached my doorstep.
Police say Collins was waiting for an Uber ride with two friends when a stranger, 22-year-old student Sean Urbanski, screamed at Collins to move, then allegedly stabbed him in the chest. Urbanski's attorney says alcohol and drug abuse may have played a role. A visibly upset university president paying tribute to Collins during graduation.
Who lost his life in a senseless and unprovoked assault.
Now, the FBI is investigating it as a possible hate crime after Urbanski's Facebook page suggested an affiliation with a white supremacist group called Alt-Right.
It shows extreme bias against women, Latinos, members of the Jewish faith, and especially African Americans.
If true, just the latest race-related incident on a college campus. Bananas hanging from nooses at American University. White supremacist incidents at Indiana University, University of Central Florida, and Iowa State. Since the election, civil rights groups say they've tracked an increase in race-related incidents on campuses nationwide.
I really have not tried to process motive or, intentions behind this yet.
Tonight in Maryland, an outpouring of grief over the loss of a young man who was excited to begin serving his country. Tom Costello, NBC News, College Park, Maryland.
Jury selection began today in the sexual assault trial of comedian Bill Cosby. Cosby is accused of drugging and assaulting a former Temple University employee in 2004. Jury selection is taking place about 300 miles from the site of the trial outside Philadelphia. Despite that, the process got off to a slow start when 86 of the 100 potential jurors interviewed said they had previous knowledge of the case. Opening statements are expected June 5th. There is word this evening about a new chapter in the long, twisted saga of O.J. Simpson, acquitted in the so-called trial of the century, but convicted of a robbery in Las Vegas years later. Now behind bars for nearly a decade, he could soon walk out as a free man again. But just how soon? Here's NBC's Stephanie Gosk.
O.J. Simpson has been in a Nevada prison on burglary and kidnapping charges since 2008. Today, the Department of Corrections announced a July parole hearing. If it goes his way, the once famed football star turned infamous murder suspect could be set free as early as this October. Simpson was convicted of the armed robbery of 2 memorabilia dealers in Las Vegas, charges unrelated to the 1994 murder of ex-wife Nicole Brown and friend Ron Goldman. That murder, followed by a live high-speed Bronco chase, a trial that gripped the country for months, and Simpson's controversial acquittal still fascinate.
These gloves are too small.
The families of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman maintain Simpson is guilty of the double homicide. A civil court in 1997 found him liable, ordering the former football star pay $33.5 million.
He may very well get parole just based upon the merits of his conduct in this case. Previously, they've ranked him as low risk.
Simpson was denied parole in 2013. If he is denied again this summer, his next chance for freedom would be in 2020. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News.
Still ahead, if you're putting off buying a hearing aid because they're too expensive, the big change being proposed that could save you thousands. Also, that terrifying viral video of a sea lion grabbing a girl and pulling her underwater. We've got the warning for every family this spring and summer.
I accept I'm not the hiker I was. I even accept I have a higher risk of stroke due to AFib, a type of irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. But no matter what path I take, I go for my best. So if there's something better than warfarin, I'll go for that too. Eliquis. Eliquis reduced the risk of stroke better than warfarin, plus had less major bleeding than warfarin. Eliquis had both.
Don't stop taking Eliquis unless your doctor tells you to, as stopping increases your risk of having a stroke. Eliquis can cause serious and, in rare cases, fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve or abnormal bleeding. While taking Eliquis, you may bruise more easily, and it may take longer than usual for any bleeding to stop. Seek immediate medical care for sudden signs of bleeding, like unusual bruising. Eliquis may increase your bleeding risk if you take certain medicines. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures.
I'm still going for my best. And for Eliquis.
Ask your doctor about Eliquis.
Your brain changes as you get older, but Prevagen helps your brain with an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, the name to remember.
Break through your allergies. Try new Flonase Sensimist Allergy Relief instead of allergy pills. It delivers a gentle mist experience to help block 6 key inflammatory substances. Most allergy pills only block 1. New Flonase Sensimist changes everything.
Hey, Scout, what's eating you?
Please take some mosquitoes. Got any ideas?
Not all products work the same. Iona gives me Canine Advantix 2. It kills all 3 through contact. No biting required.
So they don't have to bite?
That's right. No biting required. Canine Advantix 2. Wise choice.
Can a toothpaste do everything well?
This clean was like, pow. My teeth are glowing.
They are so white.
Step 1 cleans, Step 2 whitens. Crest HD, 6 times cleaning, 6 times whitening.
I would switch to Crest HD over what I was using before.
If you were just waking up to this, let us tell